Number 1. The Matrix. Release date 1999. I'm with Phantom Strider on this one. I hate the first Matrix movie. In a nutshell, this film is filled with horrendous acting, awful characters, terrible CGI, disgraceful pacing, and scenes that want to put me to sleep. The acting, aside from Lawrence Fishburne, who I think is actually fantastic in this movie, is absolutely horrendous. I know that a lot of people praise Keanu Reeves as Neo, but like Phantom Strider, I think his performance as Neo is god-awful. Reeves tries to give it his all, and he fails miserably. Carrie-Anne Moss and Hugo Weaving are also bad, but they did improve somewhat in Reloaded, only to do even worse in Revelations. Then there's the CGI. And oh god, was the CGI absolutely terrible. And I'm not just talking about today's standards. The CGI looks all rubber band-like to the point where it looks like it's something you would see out of a movie that barely had a goddamn budget. I know that some people who hate this movie said the CGI and the interrogation scene where the agents impregnate Neo with a tracking bug was terrible. But I think the part where Neo jumps off the building and lands face smack onto the road was even worse. I mean, come on, this felt like something from Looney Tunes, and it's extremely unfitting for something like this film. Then there's the pacing. About 85% of the film, nothing happens. I don't expect action 24/7, but when the character interactions are so dull and bland to the point where it puts me to sleep, there's a problem. And that's what this movie did. But wait, that's not all. There's the exposition. Good God, the exposition is horrendous. All the characters spat out random exposition up the anus so many times that it almost put me to sleep. The only one whose exposition dialogue never put me to sleep was Morpheus' exposition dialogue, because Lawrence Fishburne is the only good actor in this movie. There are 4 positives I can say about this film. Lawrence Fishburne was fantastic as Morpheus. The action was kick-ass. It had some scenes that were actually very well handled. And the entire third act was freaking awesome. Other than that, this is a film I will never be watching again. But if I do, I'm only going to watch those 4 things. Number 2, Ant-Man and the Wasp. Release date, 2018. Now, Iron Man 3 would have been on the list if this movie wasn't made. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is that Iron Man 3 is no longer my least favorite MCU movie of all time. That, my friends, now belongs to Ant-Man and the Wasp. But before I talk about the negatives, I want to go ahead and get to the positives. Once again, like The Matrix, Lawrence Fishburne is the best actor in the movie. The action is awesome, and the film does have some scenes that are very well done. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the negatives. And oh boy, there are a lot of them. For starters, The surviving cast members from the first film are all terrible. Michael Douglas is at least trying, but Paul Rudd, Evangeline Lilly, Michael Pena, and the rest of the surviving cast from the first film are completely terrible in this film, but you already know because I already said that. Scott is almost useless. Hope tries to do her Trinity from the Matrix impersonation and fails horribly. Scott's family and Paxton are barely in the film, and Louise, Dave, and Kurt are extremely unfunny in this film compared to the first one. As for the other actors aside from Lawrence Fishburne, they were just there. Michelle Pfeiffer and Randall Park were also good, but they were barely in the film. Hannah John Kamen was at least trying, and Walton Goggins, I'm sorry if I pronounced his name wrong, was just god awful. And then there's the CGI. Good God, this has to be the worst CGI that I had ever seen in an MCU movie. Especially the CGI in the quantum realm. Not to mention, the jokes in this film are extremely unfunny. Never had I seen an unfunny joke since Iron Man 3. But like Iron Man 3, none of the jokes were funny in this film. Remember earlier when I said that Louise, Dave, and Kurt were not funny in this film? Well, I mean it. In the first movie, these guys were freaking hilarious. Especially Louise, who almost stole the entire show. Here, they are incredibly annoying. And like The Matrix, majority of the time, the characters spit out random exposition that almost puts me to fucking sleep. That and the pacing is just slow as a slug. So yeah, bad acting, terrible CGI, atrocious humor, and awful pacing. That's pretty much what's wrong with this film in a nutshell. Number 3. A tie between Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs and the Muppets reboot movie. Release dates 2009 and 2011. I normally don't do ties, but I put these two as a tie because these two are both the same fucking movie. Both of them are kids' films that rely on random humor. What is random humor, you may ask? Random humor is humor where the characters act random for the sake of acting random and think they are funny by acting that way, when they're not. Now, I don't mind random humor, but these movies' style of random humor is basically treating the entire audience like idiots by acting random and thinking that they're funny doing it, when, once again, they're not. Aside from the humor being painfully unfunny, the acting in these films are atrocious, aside from James Caan and Kermit the Frog. The characters are acting like idiots for the sake of being comedic, bad pacing, and cliche plot points that are done to the worst degree. These films did get sequels, but they're nowhere as bad compared to these abominations, in my opinion. And if you want these movies done right, go watch the Lego movies. They do this concept way better.